Hey everyone, welcome back to more terrifying true stories. Today I'm sharing something that still haunts me years later. This actually happened to me when I was 16, and I want to start by saying this isn't some made-up creepypasta. This is real, and it's the reason I still check every closet and lock every door at least 3 times before bed. Even now, at 27, I have trouble sleeping alone. The events I'm about to tell you changed my life forever and made me realize that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones hiding in plain sight. I was almost 17, living with my mom and my little brother Ryan, who was 7 at the time. My mom worked night shifts at a nursing home, which meant I was usually the one watching Ryan when she was gone. Our routine was pretty simple. Ryan would be asleep by 8 and I'd have the house to myself. I'd watch TV, scroll through my phone, eat junk food, typical teenager stuff. We lived in this small one-story house on the edge of some woods. It wasn't completely isolated, but we didn't have many neighbors nearby either. I used to love having the house to myself at night. There was something peaceful about the quiet, just me and my thoughts. The house felt safe and familiar. I knew every creak, every sound it made when the wind blew through the trees outside. Our little home sat at the edge of a wooded area, which I found comforting rather than scary. The trees provided privacy, and I could see stars clearly from our back porch. It was my sanctuary, my safe space where I could be myself without judgment. Little did I know that this sense of security was about to be shattered forever. The first time I noticed something weird, it seemed so small and insignificant. I was lying in bed around 11 p.m., scrolling through my phone like any other night. The house was quiet, Ryan was fast asleep, and Mom was at work. That's when I heard it, this shuffling sound, like someone dragging their feet slowly across the carpet. I froze completely, my heart starting to race. Ryan was definitely asleep, and my mom wasn't home. I held my breath and listened intently. For a few seconds, there was complete silence, and then I heard it again. The sound was soft but distinct, a scuffing noise like someone was moving very slowly and deliberately through our living room. Every instinct told me something was wrong, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just the house settling, or perhaps one of our cats had knocked something over. I grabbed my phone tightly and crept out of my room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The hallway felt longer than usual as I made my way toward the living room, every shadow seeming to move and shift in my peripheral vision. I checked everything I could think of. The front door was locked tight, just as I'd left it. All the windows were secure, their latches firmly in place. Nothing in the living room looked out of place. The couch cushions were where they should be, the TV remote was on the coffee table, everything appeared normal. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop like a stone. The hall closet door was open, just a crack. We never, ever left that door open. It was one of those unspoken rules in our house. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my whole body tense and on edge. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn around, go back to my room, and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But my curiosity, or maybe my stupidity, got the better of me. I decided I had to check. With trembling hands, I reached for the closet door and pulled it open quickly, like ripping off a band-aid. Nothing. Just coats hanging neatly on their hangers and shoes lined up on the floor below. I actually laughed at myself, feeling ridiculous for being so paranoid. Still, something felt off, and I wasn't taking any chances. Before heading back to my room, I made sure to lock the closet door, something we rarely did. The click of the lock seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet house. As I walked back down the hallway, I kept glancing over my shoulder, unable to shake the feeling that I was being watched. My bedroom had never felt more welcoming than it did that night. I locked my door too, another precaution I rarely took, and tried to convince myself that everything was fine. A few nights later, I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. At first, I couldn't figure out what had pulled me from sleep. Then I realized what it was. I could hear breathing. Not my own breathing, but someone else's. I lay there completely still, my entire body locked up in terror. The breathing wasn't coming from the hallway outside my room, and it definitely wasn't coming from outside the house. It was coming from inside my room, somewhere in the darkness around me. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. I turned on my phone's flashlight with trembling fingers and slowly swept the light around my room. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. The beam of light revealed nothing unusual: my dresser, my desk, my bookshelf, everything exactly where it should be. My closet door was closed tight. The room appeared completely empty except for me. But I knew what I had heard. That breathing was real, not a dream, not my imagination. I barely slept the rest of that night, jumping at every small sound the house made. After that night, I started feeling weird all the time. It was like I was constantly being watched, like whenever I turned my back, someone was lurking just out of sight, maybe peeking around a corner or hiding behind a door. The feeling followed me everywhere in the house, in the kitchen while making dinner, in the living room watching TV, even in the bathroom. I tried to tell my mom about these strange occurrences, but she just brushed it off. She was exhausted from working double shifts and didn't have time for what she probably thought were teenage anxieties. Then, about a week later, my mom came home early from work. She looked disturbed, confused even. She woke me up and asked me a question that sent chills down my spine. Why was the back door unlocked when I got home? I assured her that I had definitely locked it before going to bed. I was absolutely certain of it. I always checked all the doors and windows before settling in for the night. But she insisted it was unlocked when she arrived. She'd had to lock it herself. I knew without any doubt that I had secured that door. That night, I was more on edge than ever before. I kept my bedroom door locked and my phone in my hand, ready to call for help at a moment's notice. Despite my exhaustion, sleep came fitfully. Then I woke up again to that same terrifying sound, breathing that wasn't mine. That awful gut feeling that someone was watching me returned with a vengeance. My whole body went cold as I sat up in bed, barely daring to breathe myself. I listened intently in the darkness, and then I noticed something that made my blood freeze. My closet door was open. The closet door was definitely closed when I went to sleep. I remembered checking it specifically because of my previous experiences. But now it was open, and as I watched in horror, I saw it swing open another inch as if someone or something was pushing it from inside. With shaking hands, I turned on my phone's flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness of my room. What I saw in that moment will be burned into my memory forever. There, crouched inside my closet among my hanging clothes, was a man staring directly at me. His skin was pale as death, almost ghostly white in the harsh light of my phone. His hair was greasy and matted, hanging in stringy clumps around his gaunt face. He was incredibly thin, like he hadn't eaten in weeks, his clothes hanging loose on his skeletal frame. But the worst part, the detail that still haunts my nightmares, was his expression. He was grinning at me, not a friendly smile, but something twisted and malevolent. His eyes seemed to bore into my soul, and in that moment, I felt pure, primal terror unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I don't even remember getting out of bed. One second I was staring at this nightmare figure crouched in my closet, and the next second I was somehow at my bedroom door, slamming it shut behind me. My body moved on pure instinct, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I ran to Ryan's room, my little brother waking up crying as I grabbed him from his bed. Without stopping to explain, I carried him as we both ran out of the house, my fingers already dialing 911 on my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the numbers. The police arrived faster than I thought possible. I was standing in our front yard, holding Ryan, who was still crying and confused, trying to explain to the dispatcher what I had seen. When the officers got there, they took my statement seriously and immediately went into the house to investigate. What they found confirmed my worst fears and revealed something even more terrifying than I had imagined. They found him, the man from my closet. He was still there, still crouched among my clothes like some kind of predator waiting to strike. But that wasn't the worst part. The police discovered that this man had been living in our crawl space for weeks, maybe even months. He had found a way in through a loose vent in our basement that we didn't even know existed. While we slept peacefully in our beds, while we went about our daily lives thinking we were safe in our own home, he had been down there, planning and watching. He had been sneaking into our house at night, moving through our rooms like a ghost, watching us sleep, taking food when we weren't looking, learning our routines and habits. But the most chilling discovery came when the officers searched through my closet more thoroughly. Hidden behind my coats, tucked away where I never would have found it, they discovered a knife. The police told me later that based on the evidence in his behavior, he was probably waiting for what he considered the right moment to use it. I try not to think about what would have happened if I hadn't woken up that night, if I hadn't seen him crouched there in the darkness, grinning at me with those cold, dead eyes. The investigation revealed even more disturbing details about our unwanted houseguest. He had been unemployed for months and had been essentially living as a vagrant, moving from place to place, looking for opportunities like ours. Our house, situated at the edge of the woods with minimal neighbors, had been the perfect target for him. He could come and go relatively unnoticed, and the crawl space provided him with shelter and a base of operations. The police found evidence that he had been systematically studying our family schedule, knowing when my mom worked, when I would be alone with Ryan. They found makeshift bedding in the crawl space, along with food he had stolen from our kitchen over the weeks he had been living there. Empty cans, bread wrappers, things we had noticed missing but attributed to normal consumption. He had been like a parasite, feeding off our lives while remaining hidden in the shadows. The most disturbing part was realizing how long this had been going on. All those times I felt like I was being watched, all those strange sounds in the night. I hadn't been paranoid or imagining things. He had really been there watching us. The man was arrested and charged with multiple crimes, including breaking and entering, stalking, and possession of a weapon with intent to harm. During his interrogation, he revealed details that made my skin crawl. He admitted to watching us through windows, learning our routines, and planning what he called the perfect moment. He had notebooks filled with observations about our family. What time Ryan went to bed, when my mom left for work, my daily habits and schedule. It was like something out of a psychological thriller, except it was real, and we were his intended victims. The legal proceedings that followed were almost as traumatic as the incident itself. I had to testify about what I saw and experienced, reliving those terrifying moments over and over again. The defense attorney tried to suggest that I had imagined things, that a teenage girl alone at night might have misinterpreted innocent actions. But the physical evidence was overwhelming: the knife, the makeshift living space in our crawl space, the detailed notes about our family. The judge and jury saw through any attempts to minimize what had happened to us. He was ultimately sentenced to several years in prison, but knowing he would eventually be released provided little comfort. The damage to our sense of security was permanent. We moved out of that house within a month of the incident. My mom found a small apartment in a more populated area, somewhere with neighbors close by and better lighting. But even in our new home, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak, every shadow, every unexpected sound sent me into a panic. The trauma had fundamentally changed how I viewed the world and my place in it. Ryan, thankfully, was young enough that the experience didn't seem to traumatize him the way it did me. He adjusted to our new living situation quickly and rarely mentioned at night. But I could see that my mom was changed too. She installed multiple locks on every door and window, invested in a security system, and became hyper-vigilant about home safety. She blamed herself for not taking my earlier concerns more seriously, though I never blamed her. How could anyone have predicted something so bizarre and terrifying? We were just ordinary people living ordinary lives until evil found us. The psychological impact lasted far longer than any physical injuries might have. I started seeing a therapist to deal with what she diagnosed as post-traumatic stress disorder. Sleep became a constant struggle. I would lie awake for hours, listening to every sound, checking and rechecking locks, unable to relax enough to fall asleep. When I did manage to sleep, nightmares plagued my rest. I would dream about finding him in my closet again, or about him returning to finish what he had started. Simple activities like being alone in a house became sources of overwhelming anxiety. Years have passed since that horrible night, but the effects still linger. I've learned to manage my anxiety and fear, but they never completely go away. I still check closets obsessively before going to bed. I still struggle with sleeping alone. Certain sounds, footsteps in the hallway, doors creaking open, can send me into a panic attack even now. Friends and family try to be understanding, but it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it just how deeply this kind of violation can affect you. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe space. What makes the story even more disturbing is knowing that it's not unique. Home invasions, stalking, people living secretly in others' homes, these things happen more often than we'd like to believe. After my experience, I learned about other similar cases. People finding strangers living in their attics, basements, even in spaces within their walls. The thought that someone could be watching you, studying you, planning to harm you while you go about your daily life completely unaware is absolutely terrifying. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about safety and security. I want to share the story not to frighten people unnecessarily, but to encourage everyone to trust their instincts. If something feels wrong, if you notice things out of place, if you have that gut feeling that something isn't right, don't ignore it. I almost dismissed those early warning signs as paranoia or imagination. If I had trusted my instincts earlier, maybe we could have discovered him sooner, before he had time to plan whatever he was planning with that knife. Pay attention to your surroundings, secure your home properly, and never hesitate to call for help when something seems off. So to the man who hid in our house, who watched us sleep, who planned to harm my family, let's never, ever meet again. And to anyone listening to the story, please take home security seriously. Check your doors and windows, be aware of your surroundings, and trust your instincts when something feels wrong. What happened to us was real, it was terrifying, and it changed our lives forever. But we survived, and sharing this story helps me process the trauma while hopefully helping others stay safe. Thank you for listening to this true and terrifying experience.